So, welcome to our first episode of Young Conductors Ask the Pros. These episodes are going to be with orchestra members throughout the whole world and soloists. So, right off the bat, I want to welcome one of the, if not the most successful young cellists of today. Thank you so much for being here and welcome Kian Soltani.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thanks, really, thank you so much. I'm so excited for this. Can we just start off with where are you right now and what's your daily routine like? Are you doing anything that you've always wanted to do and now finally have the chance to do it, or?
Pretty much, yeah. Where I am is I'm in Vienna. I decided to come here and spend some time. It's not really where I live, but my sister was here, and in Berlin, my roommate wasn't gonna be there, so to be completely alone was a bit extreme for this time. For me, it was like that.
Right.
So I decided to come here, spend some time with family, and yeah. Otherwise, Zurich would have been an option, of course. But yeah, my sister was here. I thought that's a good idea. So what I'm doing, I don't really have a routine. No, routine doesn't exist, other than of course eating and sleeping. But other than that, in terms of music, it's really every day is different, and I do try to do things that I usually wouldn't have the time for. So there's lots of arranging that I'm doing, actually, lots of
Right. I saw some of that. That's
arranging
great.
for ensemble and recording myself with those arrangements, trying them out, and then we're planning now some of those arrangements to be recorded now in May with Deutsche Grammophon.
Oh, wow, great.
Just for EP. EP means just a single electronic release. So yeah, I'm creating new stuff that I wouldn't have much time to do on tour. And now that I'm here, I can really go deep in that. So I'm really excited.
What about non-musical activities? Any non-musical activities that keep you busy during these times?
Nothing specific, whatever I feel like doing at that moment. We go for lots of walks. I think everybody these days is going for lots of walks. Walk a lot.
Right.
Otherwise, nothing special. Just eating, watching movies, lots of movies, and reading a bit. But I must say, movies much more than reading. And other than that, just hanging out. Really, just having a great time. Personally, I feel super relaxed. I feel it's strange to say, of course, that everything is uncertain. But amid the uncertainty, I'm trying to and succeeding to feel actually quite relaxed, and trying to
Great.
really take time for myself.
Great.
What about you?
I mean, I'm taking, like you said, a lot of walks. As a young conductor, I'm trying to much more practice piano because I've never been a pianist. So I'm trying to learn some scores, learn how to play them on the piano, just get a lot of different scores and do as much of that as possible. Reading some books and cooking, a lot of cooking. That's a lot of fun right now.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, just a little background before we get into these conductor questions, which I'm really eager to know about your experience with young conductors. But when was the first time you ever played as a soloist with an orchestra?
I don't know. I was very, very young. It was just a school project. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old, maybe.
And
7. Yeah.
Was it kind of like you knew then that this is what you wanted to do or did it kind of evolve more naturally when you got older?
No, I had no idea what I was doing. It was like just whatever. I went on stage and just, oh my God, I wish we had the video. But we do have the video of that still. I mean, at those times, I didn't think for a second about what I was doing. I was simply just doing it. There was really no brains involved in my approach to cello playing. It was simply, the first couple of years were purely playful. There was no whatsoever like goal or ambitions as such. It was really just having fun and just doing whatever. Not so much structure, really. That came much later.
Well,
I had no idea.
That first part is very important to keep that in today, though. I mean, that often gets lost. But great. Let me ask you about, obviously you've played as a solo with maestros such as Eschenbach and Barenboim, but I'm sure you've also had your share of experiences playing under younger conductors and less experienced than those kind of maestros. What would you say is the biggest, aside from experience, a biggest difference between those conductors when they accompany you and how they work with the orchestra and how they talk to the orchestra, and just anything that pops to mind?
It really depends. It's hard for me to generalize based on age also, because I've had some young conductors that are extremely advanced and great and have the whole picture. Young conductors that are less so, but the same goes for older conductors. And it's a misconception to think that just because you get older you get better. This does not happen automatically. You can get 90 years old and still know nothing, and you can be 19 and know more than the 90-year-old. So age is not so much a factor, I would say.
Right.
But in general, if I was going to really generalize a lot, of course what I notice is a little bit a difference of energy, obviously, but that has less to do with conducting, more to do just with life. I mean, these young conductors are full of energy and they are eager to work, which I like. That it's great. It's almost like an old conductor has done it so many times that, like, maybe, and it's stupid to say it like that, it's probably not even true, but maybe not every single concert with every single orchestra is that special anymore, right? They have done it like hundreds and hundreds of times. Now it's just one more. It's not that that's at all true in general, of course not. I'm just trying to maybe find a reason for that. Whereas, of course, a young conductor is just starting out, and it's very special to stand in front of an orchestra still at that time. So the energy is different. There's almost slight, maybe not nervousness, but just like adrenaline. Maybe this is what it is, adrenaline. These older, experienced conductors, I mean, it's a different kind of energy. It's not really this this adrenaline kind of, oh, what's going to happen. It's more like, really, we know what's going to happen. We've done it many times before. Let's calm down. But again, there's exceptions in both cases. I've seen young conductors who are extremely calm. I've seen old conductors who are very uncalm. So to generalize is difficult.
What about their the way they speak, the way they treat the orchestra in general? I mean, of course, we have the topics of, a lot of times, a lot of people say, oh, these young conductors are far too arrogant when working with an orchestra. They're not, per se old enough or not experienced enough to ask for these kind of things. What is your view on that? Or what have you experienced?
I mean, arrogance, of course, is misplaced, I would say, in a rehearsal, and it should be avoided. But to say that somebody shouldn't ask for something because he's not old enough, that also makes no sense. I think as long as you speak about music, you should be allowed to work however you want to work, no matter how old you are, 15 or 50, it doesn't matter. As long as you speak about music, arrogance is never appreciated in any field of life. Music is no exception, and no orchestra musician likes to be talked down to. And also, if an old maestro does that, nobody likes it. I guess it's more tolerated because of some kind of famous name or whatever, who knows. But same goes for young conductors. Nobody likes to be talked down to. So I have never, me personally, I have never experienced a young conductor who would behave arrogantly in any way. But maybe I did see that some orchestras were surprised maybe sometimes if a young conductor really wanted to work with great detail and demand a lot from the orchestra. Surprised maybe, yes, but I didn't experience a lot of pushback ever. I think if you do it convincingly and if you always justify it musically, then there's no reason for any pushback and people will come with you. So the focus should always stay on the music. If you're there to present yourself, you will get a lot of pushback. That is true for any kind of profession, not just conductors.
Right. Great, thanks. Now, this has nothing really to do with young conductors or old conductors, but just in general, usually when you come to play with an orchestra, you get one rehearsal and a general, or sometimes two rehearsals. What is mostly the case?
Mostly it's one rehearsal plus general rehearsal and then concert. To have two rehearsals plus general is very unusual, but highly appreciated if it happens.
Right. So that was going to be my next question. Do you really think that is enough for you when you come to work as a soloist with an orchestra?
I mean, for me, if I'm gonna be really like mean and be devil's advocate, for me it is enough. I think because I have played the concerto 30 times,
Right.
so for me it's enough. But I'm not the only person involved in the performance. We have to have a unified everything. Everything needs to be unified. So for that, I would say it's not enough. No, if you really want to have everybody on board equally, you want to really speak about details and
Right.
get everyone as familiar with the piece as you are, more rehearsals absolutely are necessary. But of course, it's all always a budget question. It's always a question of
course.
money, and this is the most that most people can do, unfortunately. But again, I can live with it because I really prepare this concerto for months and months and months. Whereas, of course, the musicians of the orchestra, of course, they also prepare it. I suppose I don't know, but it's safe to say less than me. It's safe to say so, but also it is obvious that it has to be like that. But I'm sure also musicians from the orchestra would appreciate one more rehearsal to get more familiar with the piece, especially if it's a concerto that they haven't played like 100 times. There is instances where you go to England and you play Elgar and they have played it 50 times this season already, and a second rehearsal is not even necessary. It would really be already too much rehearsal. But those are the rare occasions. I think most of the times orchestra musicians would also appreciate it if a piece that is not played so often by them could have one more rehearsal, and also the conductor would probably feel better with it. And just we all manage. I manage, the conductor manages, and the orchestra musicians, they all manage, because everybody is sort of professional and prepared. But to get it really together as a unit, it doesn't matter how much you have prepared individually. You need to spend that time together, and for that, the more time you spend together, the better the result. That's just how it is.
Yeah, great. Moving along with this, what do you, with all the concertos you've played with the various types of orchestras and different conductors, what would you think for us to accompany? Two questions. First of all, what is the most difficult concerto or piece for cello and orchestra to accompany, and what are the most difficult aspects of accompanying, balance or following your rubato? And if I could, I'll add one more thing. Do you always sit with a conductor before to discuss the score and discuss what you're going to do, or do you just kind of do that on stage in the rehearsal? That's where you deal with those things.
But I'll start from the back. This sitting with the conductor before rehearsal always depends on the conductor. It does not depend on me, unless I guess I were to really insist in advance to be like, I really need to sit with the conductor. I guess then they would make that happen, but I've never done that. I always let the conductor decide, because I don't want to impose myself. If the conductor is confident enough and really is sure that he doesn't need to meet me before, he just wants to meet in the rehearsal, which sometimes happens, who am I to tell him otherwise? I'm like, sure, that's fine.
Of course.
But many times I think it's more usual that you do meet the conductor beforehand. And sometimes that is also strictly symbolic. You sit down for a coffee and you speak and you don't even play a note. And even that I appreciate greatly. Like if that would be a tradition, then at least I think that's on a personal level, that's nice. To meet before, just get to know each other a little bit. But of course, many times you do play for the conductor and discuss certain things and elements of the piece before the rehearsal. So it really depends on what the conductor wants. I appreciate always to meet the conductor before, me personally, not just because of musical reasons, but also because of personal reasons. It just makes a nice friendly atmosphere. But I've also many times gone straight to the rehearsal when the conductor didn't want to meet, and that was not less good because of it.
Sure.
So the other question you had was, of course, what is the most difficult thing to conduct and accompany, and which aspects of it. One big example that comes to mind, of course, is the biggest cello concerto, Dvorak, cello
Right.
concerto, which is difficult to conduct. I hear. I've obviously never conducted it myself, but everybody says it is tricky to conduct because there's many tempo changes. But the
Right.
biggest challenge with this piece, and something that I think is always, or let's say never rehearsed enough, is the balance
Right. Absolutely.
with this particular concerto, because it's, I would say, in the cello literature, maybe among the most difficult concertos in terms of balance.
Yeah.
In the sense that the orchestra is very, very richly orchestrated. I mean, amazingly orchestrated. Just so
Yeah.
many ideas from Dvorak, and so many little interesting secondary voices. So many interesting voices in the orchestra that everybody wants to play out. That is a problem. He has written it too interestingly, Dvorak. He's
Yeah.
putting too much care into the score. I'm being sarcastic, of course. It's just, he was so brilliant with his writing that everybody just wants to play and shine. And that creates a huge problem for this concerto, because the cellist just gets lost in this symphonic sound. That the piece needs a symphonic sound. That's a dilemma with it, because it needs a symphonic sound, but you really have to work specifically on specific places of the piece where the orchestra really just needs to go down, and every dynamic needs to be just reduced by one full step. Otherwise, it's impossible to really have a convincing performance that past the fifth row people can still hear the cello
Absolutely.
in a good way. You know, until the fifth row, it's never a problem anyway. But I'm talking about the second half of the concert hall. It's always those people you have to worry about, not
Yeah.
the first,
Of course. Of
like the
course.
most expensive tickets.
Yeah. Because there's only so
so I
much
would
you
say
can actually
Dvorak,
give.
yeah. I have limits, yes. I have limits. There is always limits with how loud you can play, but luckily there's never limits with how soft you can play, and
That's
many people don't really, I would say, use enough.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of courage.
The quiet elements.
Takes a lot of courage to really try to play as soft enough. Because you can, like you said, you can
takes-
always really play softer.
It takes courage from the musicians to do it. It takes courage also from the conductor to ask for it.
Exactly.
And that is something that I notice a bit, is that, I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but it's sometimes not enough demanded from conductors, this balancing topics, you know, this asking for,
Yeah.
can you just please play less, and sometimes it is asked once or twice, but it really, these kind of things need to be insisted,
Yeah.
constantly insisted, and I almost feel like conductors are afraid to upset orchestra musicians, therefore
Right.
they don't do it so much. But I don't want to generalize, everybody's different, but this is certainly something I've been struggling with ever since the first time I played Dvorak concerto, which is the balance. And I've really only once or twice had a performance of this piece where I was truly happy with the balance, and only just recently also done it like that, because we really sat down with the conductor for 3 hours before the rehearsal, and we went through the whole piece in terms of dynamics, and we really he wrote down in his score every little dynamic change that needed to be done, and he communicated it bar for bar to the orchestra, and he kept insisting on it. And it really was a great performance in the end. It was really like thought out, and it was well balanced. And I think that is something that...
Was it a young conductor or an old conductor?
He was an older conductor.
Okay.
Middle-aged, let's say. Middle-aged. That's something that I think is a bit of a problem with these genius masterworks, such as, let's say, Dvorak concerto. It's really like... unreachable level of composition, like it's unhuman almost. This composer is larger than life. It's so big and genius that you don't want to touch it. That's a problem. People are afraid to change even one dynamic marking, but many things have changed since Dvorak has written this piece. Who knows why he wrote forte for the flutes? Were the flutes softer back then?
Right.
Were they wooden? Look, now flutes are so extremely loud that a forte in a flute can cover almost the entire orchestra if he wants to. So these dynamic things have to be adapted to every hall, to every situation, and every year things change. But I think those things have not changed enough, and people are not taking initiative enough to really adapt dynamics that composers have written to every specific hall and every specific orchestra. A forte that Dvorak wrote 150 years ago is not the same forte that can be applied
Yeah.
today. It's just the
Well,
halls have changed, the halls have become
that's
bigger, orchestras have become louder.
that's a big topic anyway. Not only for accompanying. That happens often also in. I mean, example, Mahler symphonies and how Mahler was so detailed about the softer instruments have to crescendo before the louder instruments and that sort of stuff. So I think a good way to look at that is following Mahler's way of composition for balance. But I wanted to ask, has there ever been a performance or a week with an, let's say, young conductor where something, you felt awkward about something, or it felt unnatural, or something, without giving names or anything like that, but just about a not a great experience you had with a young conductor?
No, me personally, I consider myself a quite easygoing guy. Really, I can adapt to most situations. I'm not the kind of guy who goes with a fixed image, and if it's not exactly that, then I get some kind of mental breakdown.
Right.
This is the life that we have. Is you have to be open for input from other people, and you have to be open to do things differently than you're used to doing
Right.
it. If you always want to play Dvorak one way, then you're gonna have a hard time because everybody has his own opinion about the piece and so on. So I'm a guy who is open to anything people say. I'm really open to it. I'm not saying I'm gonna do it,
Yeah.
but I'm open to anything people say. You can tell me, hey, start Dvorak up bow. I will listen to you. I will not do it in the concert, but I will listen to you. Ah, good, interesting idea. Why? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do that, but sure. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. That's okay. That's great for you. So even if a young conductor would do things that I'm not used to doing like that, or I thought it was not that great, I personally never had any awkwardness because of that. Because in the end of the day, let's just have fun. I mean, you try to make the best of each situation. Now, if this conductor doesn't have so much experience yet, there's nothing I can change about that in that situation except trying to be and stay positive.
Right.
The more positive you approach this young conductor, the better he will feel, and the better he feels, the better the result. If you start to now really bully him,
Yeah, it's over.
and make things even more awkward,
We don't
and
want-
he will get insecure.
We don't want
he or
that.
she.
We don't
And
want that.
No, nobody wants
Yeah.
that. Nobody wants that. But these are general rules of human interaction,
Yeah.
and I think they should be applied to this just as much as any other area of life. So awkwardness can always be avoided with just normal and open communication. Nothing has to be awkward. Things can be addressed. If you really don't agree with something, calmly and politely and respectfully address
Yeah.
it. I mean, most people are mature human beings who are able to have a normal conversation.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point I will meet people who are not,
Right.
and they will
Yeah, I was just-
maybe not be able to have a normal, mature conversation. But it's not going to affect me. Then I'm just going to decide to do the best that I can do.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, it seems that you've only had positive experiences working with conductors, so let's let's hope it stays like that.
Yeah, but that positive experience is only if you decided it was a positive experience. Nobody can make that definition for you.
Right.
I tell you it was a positive experience, but maybe somebody else who had the exact same experience with me would tell you it was a negative experience. It's all a question of your attitude towards the situation.
Exactly.
You can look at everything as a positive experience, and even if I didn't agree with the conductor, which of course has happened many times, for me that is not a negative experience. For me, making music on stage is almost always, unless really something went horribly wrong, it's almost always a positive experience. So I would not like to blame a conductor ever for some sort of negative experience. I've only had positive experiences, yes, because it's hard to imagine that there would ever be such a thing as a negative experience when we're talking about making music.
Right. Seems like you're the perfect soloist any conductor would like to accompany.
Book me now.
Yeah. All right. So let's just get this to a close. Any last words of wisdom or advice you would give to young conductors?
Well, assuming it's only going to be young conductors probably who are going to watch this, I don't think Eschenbach will sit and watch this video now.
You should send. You could send him. You
no,
could send him a copy.
I don't have any advice, or neither does he need any advice from me. But so this applies, I would say, to conductors in general. But that's why anything I'm going to say now is for conductors in general. But it's probably going to be the young ones that will listen to it. It's just for me, is to not be afraid to ask for something from the orchestra, as long as you do it in a humane way. As long as you don't go down the arrogant road, which I've never experienced, but apparently it exists. As long as you do it because of some musical reason, people will respect that, and you should not be afraid to ask for things. And just for me as a soloist, of course, always the biggest issue as a cellist is balance.
Right.
So I would really, really hope that many conductors take it to heart to work on balance with soloists. Work on it. It's so important. It's almost the only work you need to do when a cellist shows up, because he has played the piece, he knows it, you hopefully know it, the musicians can play it. 90% of the work you should do in a rehearsal when there's a cellist sitting next to you is getting the right sound, meaning getting the right balance. Right. That's 90% of the work you have to do. To be together is almost the easiest thing. This music is so natural, and the musicians in the orchestra, they hear it, they feel it. It's not, I mean, I don't want to downplay the importance of a conductor, but it's the conductor's job, number one, is not to get the people to play together. Sorry if not offending anybody. He really needs to be able to lead the rehearsal in a way that at the end it sounds better, and at the end, if he's done his job amazingly well, the concert could even happen without him.
Right.
That means that you have rehearsed in a really amazing way. And so the most important job a conductor does is in the rehearsal, not in the concert. In my opinion.
Absolutely.
So let's take that time and work on the sound, on the balance, really, and get the people to just play a little bit less loud.
All right. Great. So again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully see you soon when this craziness is over.
Yeah, man. Hopefully. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.